This is my process as a swing trader in 7 steps. Let's get into it. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Tori Trades, here to give you guys all of the tips on trendline trading. Today I'm going to be talking about how I find my trades, what my routine looks like, playbook examples, how I recap and break down my trades, what time frames I focus on, my entry and exit criteria, and how I can repeat and improve. Step number 1, how do I find my trades? I found this amazing feature on TradingView that has changed my literal life. And it is simply the ability to put alerts on my trend lines. Each one of these trend lines that you guys see on the screen has an alert. You can see this little bell icon is on my trend lines. I am the first one to know, obviously not literally, when one of my trend lines is getting broken or even touched. I need to know when somebody's tickling my trend line, you know what I'm saying? So we've got right here 1, 2, 3 touch points on a downward trend line in crude oil. Price has just recently crossed it. I am now on red alert, high alert. I am ready to take an entry on crude oil. I will usually take an entry once the price has broken this downward trend line, but since we are also at an area of resistance, I need double confirmation for this specific trade. So not only did I have an alert on this downward trend line, I even have an alert on this level here at 68.86. So as I am creating this video right now, I am waiting for the price to not only have broken this downward trend line, which it has, but also break this 68.86. So while I'm making this video, we may very well get an entry here showing you how do I get into my trades? What is my entry criteria? And this would be it right here. So I am currently sitting on my hands, being patient, waiting for the price to break this level. So how do I find my trades? I will simply wait for the alerts on my trend lines to go off in order for me to consider getting into a trade. Now, I do also have to have a routine on when I draw my trend lines. And I have a routine where on Sunday nights, I will draw all of my trend lines. I'll make any of my adjustments. There are going to be many times where I need to adjust my trend lines. There are new trend lines that I need to draw and previous trend lines that have already been broken that I need to delete. But as far as how I find my trades, I am going through my watch list, which we've got crude oil and platinum are my 2 main instruments. I am adjusting my trend lines, I'm drawing my trend lines, and I am deleting previous trend lines that have already been broken, and then adding alerts on each one of these trend lines. So that is essentially how I find my trades. I'm setting my alerts, and I'm waiting for them to be broken. Next step is my routine. I have to have a routine in place. If you want to get anything done correctly, there always has to be a routine. It's as simple as creating time in my schedule on Sundays to sit down and go through the different instruments on my watch list and make sure all of my trend lines are in the correct place and anticipate whatever could happen for the coming week. I like to go through as many different scenarios in my head as I can. I will even use the path tool here to come up with as many different scenarios as I can on what could happen this coming week. So once all of my lines are in the correct place, all of my alerts are set, then I simply will get myself ready and prepared mentally for whatever scenario. I come up with profitable scenarios, I come up with worst case scenarios, I come up with consolidation scenarios. I just get myself ready and prepared for whatever the market's going to give me this coming week so that I just never feel like I'm thrown off guard. I'm ready for anything. So it would look exactly like this. All of my lines are set in the correct place. We've got 3 touch points of our downward trend line. The alert is on. We've got an upward trend line, a horizontal level here that's acting as resistance right now at the 68.86. And now I'm simply going to use this path tool and just go over, we'll start with worst case scenario. If the price of crude oil comes up and triggers my alert, triggers my entry, and then I'm thinking of getting in my position, and then it immediately comes down against me. Boom. If something like this happens, price of oil comes up and then immediately retraces, that's going to be a loss. Now that is a planned loss. That is according to the strategy. This right here would be where I have to take my loss. This would be worst case scenario, where I get in and it immediately goes against me. There's other scenarios where I get in, alert is triggered, it goes against me, but then it continues in my favor. Okay, I'm okay with that. As long as it stayed above my safety line or above my upward trend line, I'm okay with getting in and it immediately going against me and then working out. That happens often, very often. This is a more realistic scenario here. And then I get myself ready for best case scenario. Price breaks, pulls back a little bit, and takes off. There we go. That is best case scenario if I get into this long position in crude oil. Once I get that double confirmation, downward trend line is broken, 3 touch points, resistance is broken, boom, we're getting in. This is best case scenario. So that is what my routine looks like. I am setting the alerts on all of my trend lines, adjusting, deleting, and adding whatever new trend lines I need to on Sunday nights. And then I am preparing for any case scenario that's going to happen this coming week. Okay, and then step 3 is my playbook example. So I have a few different playbooks in the cards here in the deck, and one of which is a 3 touchpoint trendline break. Now I have 2 touchpoint trendline breaks. I have the bounce, the retest, the candle close. There's a lot of different playbooks here, but my number one, my A+ is going to be that 3 touchpoint trendline break. And this right here actually happens to be a beautiful example. This, what we're looking at right here on crude oil, real time, tonight, is a scenario of my playbook. So I want to walk you guys through the playbook that I have in TradeZella that helps me just check off all of my boxes. Okay, so here's an example of my playbook for the 3 touchpoint trendline break. First things first is, does the trendline have 3 touch points? The answer is yes. On crude oil, this does have 3 touch points. Next, is this a low risk setup? In order to identify if this is a low-risk setup, we see how far away the price is from the opposing trend line. This could be low risk if I reduce my position size. If I come in with 10 contracts instead of 20 contracts, we can check that off. I will probably be coming in with 20 contracts instead of 10 contracts. But for example purposes, we will say that this checks all of the boxes, and I will get into this trade with only 10 contracts, so we can simply check off the low-risk setup. Low-risk setup. Is there over a week's worth of data? If I go back into TradingView, ooh, all right, you guys, my alert is currently going off. Price is currently breaking this 68.86. It's at 85 right now. It's pulling back a little bit. I could be getting into my trade right now. I'm going to give this just a little bit more time. We are on the 4-hour time frame, so I've got plenty of time to make my decision. But if we can get some sort of momentum here, I can go ahead and get into this trade on this video. Super exciting. Okay, but is there more than a week's worth of data on this trend line? We've got the first touch point here on August 30th and the last touch point here on September 6th. We absolutely have over a week's worth of data on this trend line. That's amazing. So we can go ahead and check that box off. And now let's go over the market conditions. Can we check off trending markets? We're going back into TradingView. We are currently in a trend. We're not in consolidation. After this trend, we could be in consolidation. That'll be this coming week. Are we going to just continue to bounce back and forth here? Are we not going to be able to break out of this 68.86 with much momentum? But right now, current market conditions are trending. We are trending down, so I can go ahead and check that box off. And now, we simply are going to have to wait for the exit criteria. Exit criteria is, has a safety line been crossed, or the opposing trend line, or has support and resistance been hit? So I will not be able to check those off until I exit my trade. But that is essentially my playbook. That is one of the few playbooks that I have, but this is the 3 touchpoint trendline break playbook. Okay, next step is, how do I recap and break down my trades? Now this is a beautiful transition because we are still in the same program. I continue to use TradeZella when I recap and break down the trades that I place. So when I am in my trade, I will simply go to the trade itself in TradeZella. And I've already created a video specifically showing you guys how I break down each one of my trades, how I go back and see what I did right, what I did wrong. And I'll give you guys the most brief overview here on this specific video. But I will essentially go into TradeZella. I will go to this specific trade. I will see if this met all of my playbook criteria, entry criteria, market conditions, and exit criteria. Then I'm going to go into stats, enter my stop loss, my original stop loss, which was my original risk. Now, if you guys know my strategy, you know that my risk will trail as price progresses along the trend line, and I don't have profit target. I'm simply in it to win it. I am going to see how long price trends along this new trend line, and I don't ever know how long it's actually going to trend along that new trend line. But I always will have an original stop loss or an original risk. And then I go through my setups, and I will tag all of the setups. Is this a 3 touch point break? Is this a high risk trade? Is this a multi-week breakout? Is this a multi-month breakout? Is it a trend line break? So I go ahead and tag everything in my setup, and then I go in and tag my mistakes as well. Was I bored? Did I over leverage? Was this revenge trading? Was this an impulsive entry? Was this a heavy position? Yes, this trade was actually. This is just a previous trade. And then I will go through and add my template for my trade review, which is my trade review here. I give my trade a title, an overview. I provide a summary of the trade. I highlight the key reasons for entering the trade, setup details, entry, position size, exit, profit, and loss. I will rate this trade and then give key takeaways. So this is what my recap and breakdowns look like after placing my trade and going back through and overviewing what I did right and what I did wrong. Okay, next is, what time frames do I focus on? Okay, so if I'm trading a completely new instrument as a swing trader, what time frame do I focus on? Well, I'm always going to start with the top-down analysis, and I want to see what it's done as a whole. So I start in the monthly time frame, and I always want to look for this dinosaur icon. I want to see the very beginning, right here. And I will simply mark up my chart on a monthly time frame. I will look at the monthly trends. I want to see bullish and bearish trends, if there are bullish and bearish. And if not, then I have to just simply move down a time frame. But on the monthly time frame, I'm marking up the monthly trends. Then I move down to the weekly. And then I will mark up the weekly trends, bullish and bearish. Then the daily. And then finally, I'll come down to the 4-hour time frame, and then that is where I stay. The 4-hour time frame is where I spend my focus, where I spend my time, and where I take my entries and my exits. If I do need to know what the price is doing in a daily time frame, I will occasionally look at the daily, just glance at it, and then come back down to the 4-hour for my entry and my exit. So overall, I'm spending most of my time in the 4-hour time frame. All right, next step, what is my entry and exit criteria? If we're using this setup right here as an example, my entry criteria is this for this specific playbook. Does the trend line have 3 touch points? Is it a low risk setup? And does the trend line have over a week's worth of data? In this scenario, yes, we can check off all of these boxes for the entry criteria. Next, we're gonna look at market conditions. Are we in a trending market? If so, we can check that box off. We're not able to check off any of the exit criteria because I haven't placed my trade yet. But if we were in a trade, the exit criteria would be one of 2 things. Either price has hit an area of support and resistance, or the price has crossed the opposing trend line. So that is my entry and exit criteria. And we have made it to the last step, repeat and improve. How do I repeat this process? And how do I improve it moving forward? And the only way that you're ever gonna be able to repeat and improve anything is simply by looking at it as a whole. So I look at all of my trades as a whole. I'm looking for all of my data here. And I wanna see as a whole, what do most of these trades have in common? What do most of the losers this year have in common? And I will simply adjust and modify as needed. There are rarely going to be times where I do need to make modifications to my strategy just because this has been something I've been implementing for 9 years. If you guys are trading a new strategy or trying something new or simply just trying to see the success of a strategy, you need to go back through your trades and see what worked and what didn't. And are you able to make any adjustments to what didn't work? Are your entries late? Are you holding on to your losers too long? Are you giving your profits back? Just going back and seeing as a whole, what do the winners have in common? How can we replicate that? And what do losers have in common? And how can we remove that? That is my 7-step process as a swing trader. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Follow me for all of your trendline trading tips, and I will see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Drop a comment if any of this was helpful, or you guys have questions on any of the processes.